For centuries, lighthouses have stood as lonely sentinels against the unforgiving sea, guiding ships through treacherous waters. The men who manned them, often isolated for months on end, faced relentless storms and profound solitude, sometimes paying a terrible price.
Tales of lighthouse keepers going mad weren't just folklore, they were a grim reality, a testament to the psychological toll of such a life.
But what if the madness wasn't the final chapter? What if, instead of losing their minds, they simply vanished? No bodies, no struggle, just an empty tower echoing with the questions of the sea.
Well, on a remote island off the coast of Scotland in December 1900, madness wasn't the scariest thing to happen. 3 men didn't lose their minds, they vanished.
Welcome back to The Curious Past. I'm Danny.
And I'm Shan. Today we're setting sail into one of the darkest and most haunting maritime mysteries ever recorded.
Picture this. 3 men stationed on a lonely rock in the North Atlantic, surrounded by crashing waves and howling wind. One moment they're dutifully manning the lighthouse, and the next, they're simply gone. No distress signal, no wreckage, not even a footprint in the sand.
This is the true story of the Flannan Isles disappearance, a tale as chilling as the ocean that swallowed it. 3 lighthouse keepers vanished in 1900 from the remote island of Eilean Mòr, leaving behind only questions and a flickering lamp.
So batten down the hatches and get ready to navigate the uncharted waters of a century-old enigma that continues to defy explanation.
Our story takes us to the windswept and wild Flannan Isles, a cluster of remote uninhabited islands off the west coast of Scotland. Eilean Mòr, the largest of these, is little more than a jagged rock, battered by the North Atlantic.
Yet, perched precariously on its highest point stood a beacon of hope, the newly completed Eilean Mòr Lighthouse, a monumental feat of engineering first lit in 1899.
Manning such a remote outpost was a demanding profession designed only for the toughest and most disciplined of men. A lightkeeper's life was one of strict routine and profound solitude.
Days were spent meticulously cleaning the massive lenses, polishing brass, winding the intricate clockwork mechanisms that rotated the lamp, and maintaining every inch of the tower. Nights were consumed by vigilance, ensuring the powerful beam pierced through the darkest storms.
Supplies arrived infrequently, brought by relief ships from the mainland. Communication with the outside world was minimal. It was a life of quiet dedication, shared only with a handful of fellow keepers, often for months on end. This was the world of the Eilean Mòr keepers.
In December of 1900, the Eilean Mòr Lighthouse was manned by a crew of 3 experienced keepers. James Ducat, the principal keeper, a seasoned veteran known for his meticulous records.
Thomas Marshall, a second assistant, quiet and devout, and Donald MacArthur, the third assistant, a more excitable man, often prone to worry, filling in for a sick colleague. A 4th keeper, Joseph Mòr, was ashore awaiting his relief duty.
Their watch began as any other. For days, the lighthouse beam cut faithfully through the winter gloom. However, on December 15th, a passing steamer, the Archtor, noted that the Eilean Mòr light was out. This was highly unusual and immediately reported.
Bad weather delayed the relief ship the Hesperus for several days. Finally, on December 26, 1900, the vessel managed to reach Eilean Mòr, carrying the relief keeper Joseph Mòr and the relief crew.
As the Hesperus approached, an eerie silence hung over the island. There was no flag flying, no provisions box lowered, and no greeting party. A profound sense of dread fell over Joseph Mòr.
The captain blew the horn, fired a flare. Still no movement.
Joseph Mòr disembarked alone, rowing ashore. What he found sent a chill down his spine. The gate to the Lighthouse compound was shut.
All 3 beds inside were unmade. A half-eaten meal sat on the table in the kitchen, as if the men had simply stepped away for a moment. But no one was there.
2 sets of oilskins were missing, the heavy gear the keepers wore outside, but MacArthur's was still hanging by the door.
The clocks had stopped. The lamp was cleaned and ready, but unlit. Most disturbing was the logbook.
The last entries, made by Principal Keeper Ducat, recorded increasingly severe storms leading up to December 15th, and strangely, mentioned Marshall being unusually quiet and MacArthur crying. The very last entry, dated December 15th, simply read, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all."
All 3 keepers were missing. There was no sign of a struggle, no blood, no evidence of foul play. It was as if they had simply vanished into thin air.
The mystery immediately gripped the nation. An official investigation was launched by the Northern Lighthouse Board, led by Superintendent Robert Muirhead, the very man who had hired the missing keepers and knew them well.
He meticulously examined every detail, every scrap of evidence, battling against the wild theories that already began to circulate.
Muir had noted that some of the damage to the West Landing was difficult to believe unless actually seen.
From the evidence he gathered, he was satisfied that the men had been on duty up till dinner time on Saturday the 15th of December, that they had gone down to secure a box in which the mooring ropes, landing ropes, etc. were kept, and that an extra large sea had rushed up the face of the rock, had gone above them, and coming down with immense force had swept them completely away.
No bodies were ever found, but the sheer mystery ignited a fascinated national speculation in newspapers and periodicals of the era. Implausible stories ensued that a sea serpent had carried the men away, that they had arranged for a ship to take them away and start new lives, that they had been abducted by foreign spies, or even that they had met their fate through the malevolent presence of a boat filled with ghosts.
Over time, a captivating but ultimately false story developed around unusual logbook entries. These fictional accounts supposedly had Marshall writing on December 12th about severe winds the likes of which I have never seen before in 20 years, and reporting that Ducat had been very quiet and Donald MacArthur, a veteran mariner with a reputation for brawling, had been crying.
Later entries, supposedly on December 13th, were said to state that the storm was still raging and that all 3 men had been praying, a puzzling detail for experienced keepers in a secure structure 150 feet above sea level. The final dramatic entry on December 15th famously read, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all."
However, an investigation by researcher Mike Dash for the Fortean Times, years later, revealed a critical truth. These dramatic logbook entries were entirely fictional, later additions to the Eilean Mòr story, likely crafted to enhance its mystery.
Furthermore, there had been no reported storms in the area on December 12th, 13th, and 14th. The true logbook entries were far more mundane.
This crucial debunking, while deflating a popular myth, actually deepens the real enigma, leaving us to wonder what truly prompted these elaborate fabrications.
Despite the debunking of the sensational logbook and the official explanation, the very lack of bodies and the peculiar circumstances continue to feel more nuanced theories.
The rogue wave theory remains the strongest official explanation, powerfully supported by the geography of Eilean Mòr. The island's coastline is deeply indented with narrow gullies called geos.
The west landing, where the damage was seen, terminates in a cave. In high seas or storms, water would rush into this cave and then explode out again with considerable force.
Researcher James Love discovered that Keeper Marshall had previously been fined for equipment washed away during a gale.
This suggests a compelling motive. Marshall and Duca were likely down at the landing attempting to secure equipment, trying to avoid another fine when they were swept away.
This theory also posits that MacArthur, who was required to stay behind to man the lighthouse, may have seen the approaching series of large waves or realized his colleague's danger.
He might have rushed down to warn or help them, only to be caught and swept away by the violent swell himself. This would explain why his oilskins were left behind.
Adding to this, first-hand experiences from later keepers like Walter Aldebert, who served on the Flannans in the 1950s, support the idea that a single man could be washed into the sea, with his companions then lost trying to rescue him amid subsequent rogue waves.
A darker proposal delves into the psychology of the keepers. Given Donald MacArthur's known volatile character, some speculate that a fight could have broken out near the cliff edge by the west landing.
A scuffle, perhaps exacerbated by the isolation or personal tensions, could have led to all three men falling to their deaths. This theory, while purely speculative, attempts to explain how three experienced men could all have been in such a dangerous, exposed position.
And of course, the enduring phantom theories persist. The sea serpents, the ghosts, the spies, the desperate escape to new lives. While these captivating narratives have fueled countless books and films, they remain largely unsubstantiated, born from the sheer incomprehensibility of the event.
Despite the strong official explanation and the debunking of sensationalized logbook entries, the true fate of the Eilean Mòr lighthouse keepers remains one of Scottish history's most compelling and chilling cold cases.
The lack of bodies, the unusual circumstances of the deserted station, and the sheer eeriness of the lonely island all ensure that the mystery endures. What truly happened on Eilean Mòr in December 1900?
The North Atlantic holds its secrets close, and for now, the fate of James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur remains a powerful, unanswered question, a guiding light that still seeks its true destination.
And that's where we drop anchor on today's mystery. The story of the Flannan Isles keepers is still adrift in speculation, but maybe you can help steer it closer to the truth.
If you've got a theory, a thought, or just a spooky feeling about what happened on Eilean Mòr, drop it in the comments.
If you enjoyed today's dive into the unexplained, be sure to hit that like button. It really helps us out, and if you're new aboard the Curious Pass, subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a voyage into history's strangest corners.
Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious.